Episode 5 حلقه 5 We arrived at the island. ام گهشتیم جزیره باشه که how my adventure on shore began. چوا کشتم من دست بگیر سر کناری.
The island looked very different when I came on deck next morning. We had made good time in the night, and the ship was lying approximately half a mile to the southeast of the island. Grey-colored woods covered a large part of the surface, and rocky hills pushed up high above these trees. The spyglass was the tallest hill on the island by more than 300 or 400 feet, and it had a large flat top. I didn't like the look of Treasure Island. With some difficulty, we brought the ship into a safe but narrow passage of water between Treasure Island and the nearby Skeleton Island, and we dropped the anchor. The trees came down to the shore, and there was a swamp with the little freshwater rivers running out into it. The air smelled of dead, wet leaves. As we arrived, the crew lay around on the deck, grumbling together. Orders were followed slowly and carelessly.
This misery won't last forever.
A man spat. As soon as we arrived at the island, most of the crew lay around on the deck, grumbling together. Orders were followed slowly and carelessly, and mutiny, it was clear, was hanging over us like a big black cloud. Then we decided to have a meeting in the cabin. And Captain Smallest said, "Things are becoming very difficult, sir, and there is only one man who can help us."
Who?
The Sequoia asked. Silver. He's as worried as us, and he's trying to hide what is happening because the time isn't right. As soon as he can, he will talk to his men and tell them to work hard and keep quiet. Let us give the men an afternoon on the island, provided that most of them go ashore with Silver. If all go, we will control the ship. If none go, we will hold the cabin. If some go, you will see. He will bring them back as quietly as sheep. So it was decided. Silver, take the men with you and go ashore. I will give you an afternoon on the island.
Hooray!
Then the Sequoia, the doctor, the captain, myself, and 3 other good men and about a third of the crew were going to stay on board the Hispaniola. Meanwhile, the other 13 men, including Silver, excitedly started to climb into the small boat. Then, I had the first of the mad ideas that helped so much to save our lives. With so few men on board, I wasn't needed on the ship. In a second, I had climbed over the side and quietly dropped down into the bottom of the nearest boat. I thought no one had seen me. However, Silver, who was in the other boat, called out to know if it was me.
Jim is coming with us.
And I said that it was. And I wondered whether perhaps I should have stayed on board the ship. When our boat reached the beach, I jumped out and ran into the trees. Not long after that, I heard Long John Silver shouting after me.
Jim! Jim!
But I didn't stop, and I ran and ran until I could run no more.
Episode 5 Bashar The first shot یکم گله هاته هاویتن اوشی که آلان کشت
Which way, Scully?
Pipe down. I thought I heard him.
Hang good job at sighting you did.
He must have double back.
I was happy that
Beat
I
the
had
Lord, mate.
avoided Long John, and I began to relax. Then, after I had continued walking through the woods for some time, and I suddenly heard the voices. The voices grew louder and nearer, and I hid behind a tree. I thought that I should try to listen to the conversation, so I quietly moved closer through the trees. At last, I looked down a little hill towards an open area of a swamp, and I saw Long John Silver and one of the crew. I heard Silver saying,
Mate, it is because I like you. If I hadn't liked you from the start, do you think I would be warning you now? It's all finished, and you can't do anything to change things. I'm trying to save you. Join with us, Tom.
and the other men said,
Silver, you are old, and you are honest, and you have got money too, and you're brave, and you're telling me you would join those men? Not you. I would prefer to lose my hand than turn against my duty.
was a loud cry of anger, and then a horrible long scream. It was a death cry. That sound wouldn't leave my head.
What was that?
Tom was shaking with fear. Silver quietly smiling.
That must have been Alan.
Alan!
God rest his soul. He was a true seaman. You have killed Alan, have you? Kill me too, if you can. And with that, this brave man turned and walked away. With a cry, Silver threw his crutch with all his strength. It hit Tom hard in the middle of his back. He fell down, and in a moment Silver had jumped on top of him and killed him with a knife. Then Silver slowly cleaning the blood from his knife on some grass. Then Silver blew a whistle. I guessed more men would be coming. Then I began to move away as quickly as I could. They had already killed 2 people. Might I be next?
I ran and ran, full of fear. How could I go back to the boats with these men after what they had done? Would they kill me as soon as they saw me? It was a disaster, I thought.
There was nothing left for me but death by one of the mutineers or by starvation.
But as I moved through the woods, a new fright made me stop suddenly, and I stood still, my heart racing.
خلق پنجه بشه 3 The man of the island ظلام جزيرته يانكو the white man ظلام سبي يانكو بنجام.
Something had jumped with great speed behind a tree. It could have been a bear, or a man, or a monkey. I couldn't tell. I was very frightened and I couldn't move. Then I saw it again, running on 2 legs. It was dark and strange and bent over, but I knew that it was a man. I had a pistol with me, and that now made me feel a little braver. I started to walk to where the man was, He had been hiding behind a tree, but as soon as I came closer, he stepped out to meet me.
No, 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 no! No, no!
Who are you?
You wouldn't harm Ben Gunn. Oh, poor Ben Gunn, I am.
I have spoken to one for 3 years. He was a white man, but that his skin had been burned by the sun. He was wearing bits of old seaman's clothing, and these bits were held together with sticks, various batons, and bits of string. He had an old belt around his waist, which was the only thing that looked normal about him. Marooned for 3 years, he said. I had heard the word and knew that it meant being left alone by your shipmates on a distant island with only a gun to help you survive. I have lived on guts, berries, and fish since then. Then he continued and said, You haven't got a bit of cheese with you, have you? I have been dreaming of cheese. Provided that I get on board again, you will have lots of cheese on board. On board? He repeated. What's your name, boy? Jim, I told him. Well, Jim, I have thought about it on this lonely island. And he said that he's a changed man. He said that I won't see him drinking rum again or just a little for lag. And he said that he's going to be a good man.
And Jim,
He looked around him carefully and whispered.
I'm rich.
And he repeated.
Rich. Rich.
And I will give you some of it, because you were the first man to find me. But with that, he suddenly looked frightened and hit my hand hard. Then asked, Isn't Flint's ship you are from? Is it? He looked frightened. And this gave me hope. Perhaps I had found someone who would help me. No, it is not Flint's ship. Flint is dead. But there are some of Flint's crew aboard, which is bad news for the rest of us. Not a man with one leg. John Silver. That was his name. No, if you were sent by him, then I am a dead man. I had decided what to do in a moment. I told him all about our voyage and the crisis we were now in. He listened carefully and then he said, You are a good lad. Don't you worry, Ben Gunn will help you. Do you think your squire will pay me well to help him and take me back home on the ship? Yes. The squire is a gentleman. Anyway, if we don't have the others, we will need you to help sail the ship home. Well, he continued, I will tell you some of my story. I were on Flint's ship when he went to bury the treasure. He took 6 strong sailors with him, but he came back alone. He had killed them all.
Their spirits can stand guard a while.
Billy Bones was the ship's mate, and Long John looked after the supplies. Well, I was on a different ship 3 years ago when I saw this island again. Boys, I said, let us stop and get Flint's treasure. The captain wasn't happy, but for 12 days we looked for it and found nothing. Every day they got angrier and then they said, Here's a gun, a pickaxe, and a spade. Find it yourself. Then they all went aboard and left me here. But I have been busy these 3 years here. See? And guess what? And he winked at me. But how are we going to get back on board? I asked.
I have a small boat I made. I keep her under the white rock.
Just then, there was a sudden loud crash of a cannon. They have started to fight. I cried.